Our Josh Allen is all grown up. The maturation of Josh Allen will be discussed. Plenty more coming up as well today on Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. I appreciate you guys very, very much. I want to thank today's sponsor, Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road in Lackawanna, just minutes away from Highmark Stadium. If you're in the area, make sure you go and check them out. Lots of Bills stuff, some AFC stuff that I want to get to in this midweek episode. As always, I am joined by Matt Warren from SB Nation. Listen, Matt, I'm going to tell you right now, okay? Let's discuss something before we get into anything else. I have known you now for quite a while, number of years, going back through social media. We have met before in person at Resurgence for a Buffalo Rumblings beer release party. I met you there. You've been on this show every week during the season.
Yeah.
I think I would know a guy, but it turns out I kind of don't, because shortly before we went on the air and we're recording this, I always got to let people know, when we're recording Tuesday, a little bit before lunchtime, just in case some crazy news breaks and we don't cover it on the show. But anyway, I see a tweet from one Matt Warren and two things in one tweet. I'm like, what? First of all, you said a hot dog is a sandwich. That's ridiculous, but I'm not going to die on that hill. But then you said Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and I'm like, you're crazy. So we hook up. A lot of you are watching this on the video side. If you are, I mean, you're really hammering home that point here.
Yes.
With your Christmas sweater. Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Yes.
You're literally presenting that on video form as well. A, how you doing? And B, when have you lost your mind?
Doing pretty well over here. Obviously we're, in the nitty gritty before Christmas here, 1 week. From when you guys are listening to this, probably. Yeah.
Literally.
So I have to mention, my shirt has a hyphen between the die and the hard, which is how the adjective is spelled according to Merriam-Webster dictionary, which, by the way, that was the genesis for my tweet in general, right? The dictionary calls Die Hard a Christmas movie, and who are we to argue with the dictionary? The reason I threw the hot dog in there is because I've often cited Merriam-Webster in that argument as well, because they call a hot dog a sandwich. And so that's how that whole tweet came together. And I went 0 for 2 in the Pat Moran, rankings here. But yeah, Die Hard is definitely a Christmas movie. Christmas is central to the plot over and over again throughout the movie. The movie does not happen if it's not on Christmas Eve. So there's just a lot of reasons why Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And it's not just because there's Christmas music or Christmas lights or anything. It's central to the plot. So Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Now, Die Hard 2 is a winter movie, does not take place at Christmas, even though he's like sort of traveling around the holidays as well. Not a Christmas movie, not central to the plot.
I want to double check. I'm going to fact check myself here. I usually don't fact check, and I say that all the time. But I want to. All right, I was right. How can a movie be a Christmas movie when it's released on July 22nd?
It
was not designed to be a Christmas movie. If it was, it gets released during the holiday season. Die Hard got released in July.
Yeah, and Bruce Willis has said it's not a Christmas movie, but I mean,
there you go.
I'm not going to listen to him. Like, sorry, buddy.
You're not going to listen to the star of the show?
No. He didn't write the movie. He didn't write the book. Like, no, we're fine.
It is one of the all-time great holiday arguments. It really, truly is. Because you go in any room, and if there's more than 5 people, it is not going to be unanimous. Someone is going to think that it's not a Christmas movie, or you could have 4 guys who think it is, and then one who won't, or vice versa. Nobody is going to completely agree. It is one of the more fascinating holiday traditions, arguing about Die Hard. I've been doing it on social media for a great number of years. And for the record, if it hasn't been clear already, my opinion is that it's not. Like, every time I put out a power rankings of my favorite Christmas movies, it's never on there. And I catch a lot of shit for that. I catch a lot of shit for a lot of things, including Ed Oliver, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. He was sensational on Sunday. We'll hit on him. But like I said, I definitely want to spend some time today talking about the mental side of Josh Allen. It's just, his game's different, and it's just so much fun to watch and appreciate. I want to spend some time talking about that. Also, want to send out to we're recording this on Tuesday, so I want to send a happy birthday shout out to our guy. A lot of people know and love him, Del Reed. It's his birthday today, so I want to make sure I show him some birthday love. Look, I live in Buffalo. You see him all. You've known him for a long time through social media. You've met him before. He is he's one of the most popular dudes in this city. It's almost kind of weird because he's so unassuming. He's not pretentious whatsoever. You know, he doesn't seek the popularity and the local fame, so to speak. But that dude, and I've been around him a million times. He walks into a bar, restaurant, wherever it is, people know him. He's almost like one of the, like the local TV guys or TV women, that are on the news that everybody knows. It's like, hey, here's Don Postles or Melissa Holmes or whoever it may be. Del Reed's on that level too. He walks anywhere, people know him. And it's just, I love it for him. He doesn't necessarily love it for himself, but just a really, really cool dude. One of the OGs, literally, of Bills Mafia. Yep. I don't take that lightly. Nobody says Bills fans or Bills Nation or any of that. It's Bills Mafia players, whether you're from the city, whether you're not, everyone associates the Bills fandom as Bills Mafia nowadays. And that's a pretty cool thing to, your claim to fame to be the OG, one of the 3 OGs anyway, to come up with that. Of course, 26 shirts, which he's been doing now for years. Charitable, lots of things. But yeah, happy birthday, Del. I know you like him a lot as well.
Oh yeah, happy birthday, Del. He and I met, I think it was the Ralph Wilson memorial service where they had the field house all decked out with all the Ralph Wilson memorabilia. That was it was nice to meet him there and just talk, a little bit about the current team and the past iterations of it. I think what you said about him was really nice. The the fact that he isn't all about the spotlight. I think that's part of his appeal and his charm to folks is he's not out there just, I don't know. He's not out there looking for the shine and everything like that. Right. He's and he did. Obviously he did turn it into that, but sure. in a good way. So yeah. It's just always nice to chat with Del.
Yeah, he's just one of the most down to earth, chill dudes that I know. Complete opposite of me. If I had his level of popularity, I would be insufferable. I would be literally insufferable if I was as popular as Del Reed. But seriously, happy birthday to him. Really good dude. A little bit of some actual Bills news that came down Monday. Not one of my better tweets or days on Monday. I tweeted on Monday. I was excited, and I put a gif of Carlton from the Fresh Prince doing his famous dance because I was excited that the Bills have at least for the next 2 weeks a 1:00 Sunday game. I live for 1:00 games on Sunday. And fun little fact here, Matt, I put that tweet out, okay? Honest to God.
Minutes.
7 minutes later, I got a text from somebody, we'll say a source, who says that tweet's not going to age well. The Bills game is moving. And what I heard was, and this might be more bad news, but what I heard was the Bills game was moving to 4:25, but I was told that it was actually the Jets game the following week. And I texted, I'll say it, it's not really a secret. So I sent a text to Sal Capaccio. And I said, Sal, I've heard from a reliable source that the Bills game is getting moved. Look into this. Before he even got back to me, which he said he heard about it too, or heard about the game being moved, right. But couldn't report it or whatever. Turns out 5 minutes later, the Bills put it out. But it's this week's game, New England. Right. Anyway, that tweet did not age well that I put out, and a lot of fans are mad at me like it's my fault. Like the Bills are going to play at 1:00 until stupid Patrick puts out a celebratory tweet that it's Sunday 1:00 and now it's Sunday 4:25. Well, at least I know I'm not alone in, wanting Sunday 1:00 games because it don't seem like anybody is happy about this time change. How do you feel about that?
I mean, for me personally, I'm watching all of the games anyway, just because of my role at SB Nation. I think it would have been better nationally if they had cross-flexed a game from Fox. I don't know if they still do that anymore, but Fox has 2 really good games that are only going to be seen by little parts of the country, whereas CBS just got the short end of the stick because all the AFC teams that are playing on Saturday. So with 5 standalone national games this weekend, like you always knew it was going to be a little bit light, and so they were really hoping that the 49ers and Dolphins wouldn't suck, but they do. And
Right.
so you can put Josh Allen on and the Bills into that national slot.
Yeah.
Hopefully draw some eyeballs with that, because you're not drawing them with, like, I don't know who the other ones were, like the Titans and somebody. Like, no, you're not doing anything with that. So, the Bills have drawn good ratings for teams. And so I totally understood the decision, but I know that, like, especially like people coming in for the game, or really people leaving, like if they're leaving Sunday night, that could really impact, travel plans and things like that. But
100%, 100%. And it's a Josh Allen thing. People want to watch Josh Allen play football, not even just Bills fans. People want to watch Josh Allen play football. When I was young, I was like that with Brett Favre. I would look every week, what are the Packers playing? Just because I want to watch what crazy shit Brett Favre was going to do during a game. And I think the Bills, and specifically Josh Allen, are at that point. To your point, though, that is where there is fair beef. It's like, if it's preference, who gives a shit? Whatever. What's the big deal between 1 and 4:30? Get some shit done around the house. You can look at it as, oh, that's cool. I can watch all the 1 o'clock games now on Red Zone or whatever before the Bills game, or you don't got to get up as early if you want to go tailgate. But to your point, and I've learned this over the last couple of years, more so now than ever, business stuff really does get affected when there's a time change. Events that are going on, and especially travel. Sarah Larson, obviously, Sarah Larson very, very well. I spoke with her actually today. I didn't speak with her. She bitched at me because I put out that tweet. And then I said, I love you too, Sarah. I wrote back to her, and she says she had a flight Sunday night. Her flight was to go back home late Sunday night. A lot of people, if you don't know Sarah, she's been doing this now, like 75, 76 consecutive games. She's been in every single Bills game, home and away, which that in itself is kind of wild. There's a handful of people who do that, but here's the caveat with Sarah Larson is she lives in Miami. So every game except for the 1 game a year at Hard Rock Stadium is a road game for her. So she's basically going to 16 road games per year in terms of travel. But anyway, yeah, sure. So she's got to travel back Sunday night. She's going to have to change her flight and all that stuff. So I do get it from that regards. I'm telling you though, guys, don't hold your breath if you think the Jets game is going to be Sunday at 1 o'clock as well. Just putting that out there. When the Bills take the field, also a little bit, I don't call it news, but a tidbit. Some people do care about this. The Bills put out a tweet early Tuesday morning. They're going to be wearing red, but instead of all red, which they've done in recent years, they're actually going a little bit of a different look here. They got the red jerseys with the white pants. What's your take on that look, man? How do you feel about that? I'm kind of getting a vibe of a very mixed reaction on social media.
Well, yeah, the reaction I'm seeing is like Bills fans just want the red helmets from the 90s. And like, I totally understand that. That's going to take a little bit longer lead time. This is a really nice uniform combination. And I think it's, whether it's intentional or not, it's absolutely hilarious that they're doing it against the Patriots against the Patriots when their throwback jerseys are like the red ones with the white pants and everything too. I just think it's a wonderful little touch. But no, I like the red jerseys. I'm not like super against them. Like, I don't love like the red on red ones, but like this combination I can deal with. I like it.
I don't know how I feel about it yet. I gotta spend a couple hours looking at it. I don't love the red, but I kind of got used to the red on red. What is your like favorite jersey combo? Like, if you could be home and you could pick it out, or on the road, whatever, like what is your go-to combo? What do you like the most?
Right. I like the classic blue on top with the white on bottom, or the all whites. I don't like the blue pants at all. The blue pants are terrible, no matter what they wear it with. And their record, for whatever reason, for a long time was really terrible when they wore the blue pants. And now I understand that's not causal, it's correlative, but like it still was a pain in the butt every time I saw them wearing the blue pants. Now, and my complexion wouldn't really work with red jerseys. Like, it reflects off my face and I like turn like beet red. So I look pretty okay when I wear like the dark blue jerseys. Like I look okay with that. So that's why I tend to like the blue. I
think you got a cat there who likes the blue.
I do. I don't know.
Yeah, she likes the blue. I hate the white jerseys. I hate the all white. But if they're going to play football like they did last week, I'm good with wearing all white every single week. Just before we started recording here, I'm a little bit surprised. And normally I don't care about this shit, and I still don't, but I'll take a little bit of an issue. PFF just put out their NFL power rankings, and the other ones I haven't seen yet. But on PFF, the Bills are only number 2. I would have bet my life they were going to be number 1. They got Philly at 1, Buffalo at 2. I don't understand that, how Buffalo could only be number 2. You beat Kansas City, and you just went and beat number 1 Detroit on the road, and they got Philly ahead of Buffalo. A little bit surprising. I know you really don't care much either, but a little bit surprising that they're not at the top.
It's a little bit surprising, but also the Eagles have won 10 straight games now. Their defense, I mean, the Bills' defense obviously suspect after the last 2 weeks. So I can at least understand why you would put a team like the Eagles, who is like, seems like they can beat you on both sides of the ball, ahead of the Bills, who seem to be a little bit reeling on defense.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. Let's talk a little Bills defense.
All right,
some good, some bad. Let's start with the bad. I always say, do you want the good news or the bad news first? I'm team, give me the bad news first. It's not really necessarily bad, so this isn't bad news, but we've talked about this a little bit before, but now, after watching this latest game in Detroit, not to mention injury stuff, I think we are really headed towards a Matt Milano and Dorian Williams dilemma. Milano's had 3 games now, well, 2.5. I think he's been so-so. I did watch the All-22. Spent a good chunk of Monday watching it, and I thought that Matt Milano, of the 3 games that he's been back, I thought this was his best game. Like, he was a little bit more impactful. He had that fumble recovery, but he just right place, right time. But to his credit, that was also kind of a fight for the football, and he kind of bullied that football. I don't remember who it was from Detroit, but he did take it. He had a couple nice run fills. He looked okay. He's running around coverage. He was in coverage once or twice. He looked all right. He had a couple missed tackles. One sideline whiff was pretty bad. Kind of get the sense, and I can understand it, coming off that injury. Like, when he's moving and someone's cutting, he doesn't want to extend that arm out. You know what I mean? To at certain angles. But anyway, he looked bad on that one play. But all in all, I would say he looked okay. By Matt Milano standards, he looked all right. And then you got Dorian Williams, who obviously didn't start on Sunday. However, kind of in a twist, which a lot of people didn't see coming, the Bills did have some 4-3 looks early in the football game, and Dorian Williams was out there. He hurts his elbow in the second quarter. Looks like he's going to be done for the day. But Balin Spector, who we'll talk about in a little while, was just so bad out there that they had to go to an injured Dorian Williams to finish out that football game. I liked what I saw from Dorian Williams, man. He just had some juice to him, some athleticism. He had a nice one-on-one open field tackle. And now Matt Milano left the game with a groin injury. And Sean McDermott said on Monday, we'll see how it goes during the week. Good news on the injury front, no week-to-week from Sean. It's day-to-day stuff. We'll see how the week goes. Guys are improving, including Matt Milano. How should the Bills handle this, Matt, when it comes to Milano, especially, let's just say, and it's really early in the week, but if this groin injury causes him to miss even just this one game, how do the Bills handle this going forward with him? What are you thinking right now? And it's could change, it's fluid, but what are you feeling right now?
What we've been talking about really all season is my goal is to get Matt Milano back for the playoffs, right? And so, and I want good Matt Milano back for the playoffs.
Right.
So if that means resting his groin injury now, you should do that. If that means his groin is okay and he needs to keep knocking off the rust because he didn't play for a calendar year, I think he needs to be in the game and getting, ready, ramped up for the playoffs. And so with that ultimate goal in mind of Matt Milano playing, like 90% of all pro Matt Milano by January, whatever it is, 11th, I think, then, he needs to be in the lineup, obviously, if his groin is okay. But if it's not, sit him down. The Bills have been really cautious with injury all year, sitting guys maybe an extra week longer than they would have in the past. And, I don't think that would be a knock on Milano if they were just like, hey, take this week, get healthy and come back. But he does need to play to knock off that rust.
That's where I'm talking about with the dilemma. Look, if it's Rasul Douglas, if it's Taylor Rapp, if it's DeMar Hamlin, especially the opponent this week, I'm going to be conservative. Even Spencer Brown, we'll see how he progresses during the week. But I feel a little bit differently with Matt Milano because he is 3 games in and he's not looked anything like, like we want old Matt Milano by January. Not really seeing that right now. Not saying he won't get there. I'm just saying we haven't seen that version of Matt Milano, and I start to get worried. Are we going to see? I've hit on this before in the playoffs. I remember Trey White against the Bengals was awful in 2022 in the playoffs. Last year, Von Miller almost, he pretty much said he shouldn't have even been active last year. He was just there was nothing there. If Matt Milano's playing and he's at that level, is Sean McDermott kind of doing a disservice to his defense if Dorian Williams right now is better than Matt Milano? I've been at the camp of let's get Milano right, because if he's not, you can still go back to Dorian Williams.
Right.
But to your point where, they are cautious with injuries, if Milano's got to miss any more time and he's missing those reps to knock off the rust, because I do think that's a significant factor right now, I'm not sure that going back to Matt Milano this season, if he misses more time, is going to be the right move. I'm not sure the Bills' defense is at its best if Matt Milano doesn't knock off more of the rust. I don't think the defense has been at the best the last 2 weeks with Milano. I'm not sure Milano right now is better than Dorian Williams right now. I guess that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah, and I can see a scenario where they, split reps in, say a playoff game or something like that, if Milano just isn't right. But I don't think we're even, at that, we still got 3 weeks left. So if he can, keep progressing toward, that playoff push, then I think that we should do that. So not to say that this conversation is premature. I don't think it is premature, but I'm always more of a wait and see and make the decision when you have to kind of a guy to gather as much information as I possibly can. So
that's fair.
When you're going for like the Dan Campbell onside kick, right? Like he made the calculation in his brain that recovering an onside kick was a better proposition than stopping Josh Allen on Sunday. And so I get that, I understand wanting information as soon as possible.
Sure.
But I want information early, but I don't necessarily want to make the decision early, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Makes a ton of sense. Okay. And I do agree, generally speaking, it's a premature conversation, but I don't think it becomes a premature conversation if Matt Milano's got to miss time. On top of everything else, it would be yet another injury that Matt Milano is suffering. I mean, we're talking about, I'm only thinking about the time and the rust. If he misses, at some point you might want to say, well, look, this guy's just not staying healthy. An injury might kind of solve the problem itself. It might not even be an option of both guys. Milano might end up being out. Dorian Williams has an elbow issue. He's not fully healthy. He might end up being out. Ultimately, I want to see Matt Milano play, but I need to see him out there and I need to see him playing. Like I said, I thought he was slightly better in game 3 than he was the first 2, but he's still not the Matt Milano that we know and love. I guess is what I'm saying. And it would be it's not a big setback if Rasul Douglas misses the next 2 games, if Taylor Rapp misses another game, if DeMar misses another game. A lot of these other guys, I don't consider that a setback. It's get them healthy, get them right. Keon Coleman missed a month. They had a 66-yard or 64-yard catch. The only time he touches the ball on Sunday. Those dudes are fine, but when it comes to coming back from a major injury, I think it's a bigger deal when a player has a setback and misses those reps and misses time. That's when I become concerned.
Yeah, it's about trust with him now. To your point, he's not quite reaching out like he normally might. It shouldn't be a problem with the leg. We've talked about this. I know that because it was a broken leg. He came back. He had all summer to run and do stuff like that. He had training camp where he could run. Even during the bicep rehab, he should have been able to do a lot of leg work and things like that. So it shouldn't be necessarily running rust. It's just more playing rust and making sure you can trust that arm movement.
Yeah. One more thing I want to get to, then we'll take a break. And on the other side, I do want to spend time talking about the mental element of Josh Allen's game, how it's really taken off to a next level, the maturation of Josh Allen. But I got to come back and give props again to Ed Oliver, especially after watching the game on all 22. This guy, in my opinion, he was the second best player on the Bills. He might have been the second best player on the field in this game. He was that good. He had a sack, 10 pressures, which is just ridiculous. He was a factor against an all-pro center. I mean, he did a lot of damage against the left guard too, but still, I don't care. Detroit's offensive line is great, okay? And Ed Oliver, who has been kind of all or nothing a lot in his career, his game was on Sunday. I saw Booger McFarland from ESPN put out a tweet, and he said, if this is the Ed Oliver the Bills are going to get, if Ed Oliver plays like he did on Sunday, he says nobody is beating the Bills, including the Chiefs. I don't think that's hyperbole whatsoever. He is that important to this team. Part of the reason why, and I'm known as a Ed Oliver hater, it's pretty well known that I'm regarded as an Ed Oliver hater. I don't buy that though. Look, I'm self-deprecating. I'll put myself down before anyone else can. But I push back on that because I just have higher expectations of Ed Oliver. He's not supposed to be just an okay player. He's not supposed to be just another guy on his team, a decent player. He's supposed to be what we saw on Sunday. He's a top 10 pick. They gave him a big-ass second contract. This guy's supposed to be, I mean, maybe not 10 pressures a game. That's a little ridiculous. But he's supposed to be a consistent presence on this defense. And it was very frustrating watching him play against the Rams where it looked like, I know he didn't, but it looked like on film he just took the day off. He wasn't the only one. But again, my standard for Ed Oliver is different than Jordan Phillips and Quinn and Jefferson and Daquan Jones. It is. Talk about Ed Oliver here for a minute and just how important he is to this defense and just how dominant he was on Sunday. I mean, I thought he had a special game. He was incredible on Sunday.
Right, and that's how Sean McDermott has, and even Brandon Beane have said they want to build this defense.
Yeah.
They've said they want to do it from the lines out. They didn't necessarily allocate their resources that way. That they paid big money to safeties and drafted cornerbacks high and like done all that stuff. But they've said at least publicly that they want to build through the defensive line, and they have invested at the defensive line too. Don't get me wrong. Oliver playing like that is exactly what Sean McDermott wants out of his front four. And I'm glad he played that way because coming out of that Rams game, he was one of the most vocal people saying he was pissed. And so him turning around a week later and doing that, like, how can we get you pissed off more? How can we do this? Like, do you want us to start insulting the University of Houston or something? What can we do to get pissed off at Oliver every week? Because that dude was playing with his hair on fire. And I know I tweeted at you on Sunday, so I know a lot of other people tweeted at you on Sunday.
Yeah, bullying works. That was kind of like the sentiment that I got. Bullying works. Look, it wasn't just me, though. And this is when you know Ed's not playing well because there's a lot of media and content people out there and even fans who are a lot more kind to some of the players than I could be. And they were kind of getting on him, like, where's the game? Sean McDermott even alluded to a little bit last week early in his presser. I said it yesterday on the show. I'm going to say it again. If the Bills are going to make a deep run into the playoffs in January, Ed Oliver needs to be a star player. He can't just be a jag, just another guy. He can't. He's got to stand out. He's got to have games. Him and Greg Rizzo, those two guys on the defensive line, if they play to their ability, the Bills are going to be a very, very hard team to beat, especially if they're at home in January. Anyway, all right, I'm going to take a real quick break, come back on the other side. I want to get into Josh Allen, who's just playing at a level that's just, God, you just got to appreciate it, man. You just got to enjoy it. Don't take it for granted. Anyway, we're going to talk about the mental side of Josh coming up right after this quick break. All right, I am back here again talking Buffalo Bills with my guy, Matt Warren from SB Nation. All right, dude, Josh Allen right now, another unworldly game, another game where he easily could have won Player of the Week. He's just taking his game to another level this season, and especially over the last month or so. And we see what he does with the highlights. I mean, we've been seeing that since basically 2018. Some of the crazy shit he does on the field. But to me, the mental aspect of his game has really helped, go to that next level. Like he's still exciting. He's still crazy. He's still rolling out. He's running through people. He's very chaotic out there, but it's like controlled more now. I say like instead of violent, controlled violence, that's kind of like the Josh Allen thing. Most of the time, he's more patient at least from my eyes, than I've ever seen him. He's a lot more poised in the pocket. He's not getting happy feet. He's not rattled. If he makes a mistake, it doesn't snowball on him, other than the Houston game. The Houston game, he was awful. Okay. I mean, he was forcing everything. I think he took that approach that he has to be Superman and win the game by himself. And, he was bad that game. But besides that, he just doesn't force a lot of things. And I kind of remember Tom Brady talking where he said there was a point of his career where he saw everything that a defense could throw at him. And the game just got really slow to him. Everything he saw, he's seen it before. And I kind of feel like Josh mentally right now is getting to that point. Like things just seem slower to him. Like I can't really explain it. You know what I'm talking about. There are a lot of people, hopefully, who are listening know what I'm talking about. Just the processing of the game, the mental aspect of the game, the maturity that Josh Allen has right now. It's unbelievable to see. Are you seeing a different part of Josh Allen when it comes to that? Or is it just me?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we saw a big leap forward from Josh Allen in the 2020 season. And I remember that Dolphins game early in the season where he was starting to like put passes like in just the right spot all the time. And I remember feeling like, oh crap, we've got something here, right? Like that was the moment that like it clicked for me that it was Josh Allen. Like I know he was jumping over people and all this other stuff, but like as a passer, as like a franchise quarterback, that was the moment. And it feels like that big of a step from last year to this year, even, which is hard to say because he was playing at like an MVP level before, but it feels like like you said, he's playing with that controlled, like YOLO Josh, which, we've talked about over at Buffalo Rumblings. You only live once, right? And he's not just chucking it up. He's making smart decisions. And I think he's been given a lot of freedom. There was the one play, I don't know, that Josh was supposed to hand off. I think he pulled it back and like just ran because he saw the linebacker go over that way. And it was probably an RPO call, probably a run pass call. But just seeing his ability to like, whether it's picking up on one guy on the defense or picking up on the defense as a whole, like it feels just like he's understanding like all of the pieces in three dimensions instead of just like where he's supposed to go. Like it feels when you're watching other quarterbacks in the NFL that's like, well, Sam Howell's a perfect example. If you watched the Sunday night game, right? His first read's cut off and then he has no freaking clue what to do. And he like turtles and starts to run. He gets like the happy feet. Like Josh, like, I don't even know how long he stays on some of these first reads because he already knows that it's not going to be there. And so he's already moving in his brain to like the second, third, fourth, whatever it happens to be. And it's just really refreshing to watch as someone who's watched a lot of bad quarterback play, as you have over the years here in Buffalo, to see somebody that feels like he's, 5, 6, 7 steps ahead of the defense and the defensive coordinator, no matter who's on the other side of the ball.
Yeah. We did see that. Tyrod Taylor was known as a classic one-read quarterback. Like, he's very accurate, didn't turn the ball over, did a lot of things well. I mean, hell, man, he helped get the Bills out of a drought. So I'm not shitting on Tyrod Taylor by saying that, but he was players told me that. He looked literally a one-read quarterback in him. That first guy wasn't there, plays would break down. Sure. He sees the blitzes coming now more than he ever has. He knows who's lined up where. He knows where to go with the football. To your point, he's not getting panicky if that first read is not there. The game is slowing down for him. So there's that. He hasn't lost the element of excitement and just ridiculous throws and ridiculous plays. And we saw a couple more of them on Sunday. That shovel pass or whatever you want to call it that didn't count was just stupid. Improvised throw to Keon Coleman down the field for a 64-yarder, that touch throw to Ty Johnson was beautiful. So he still has all the physical gifts that he's always had. I mean, this is a guy, it's not like he's come out of nowhere. This guy's finished, top 3 in the MVP a couple times already previously. But what I see most about him, well, 2 things. He's just limiting the boneheaded plays. Like you go back and I watched that Detroit game, and there was only one throw where I was like, ooh, like that could have been picked.
Right.
That should have been picked. Detroit just didn't make a play on the ball. That's it, though. There used to be 3 to 4 of those a game. And when he does make a mistake, and this is probably the biggest thing I'm noticing about him, when he makes a mistake, it's not snowballing. It's not a domino effect. There's been some games in Josh Allen's career. I
Yep.
think instantly to the Jets opener in 2023.
Yep.
He makes a bad throw, a bad mistake, and he would spend not an entire game, but he probably would spend 2 to 3 drives after that, kind of stuck in his own head a little bit, like what's going on here? What am I doing? I don't sense any of that anymore with him. And that's got to be a big reason why. What's he got? 6 turnovers for the whole season right now? 6?
It's 6 or 7. He's got, let's see, 5 interceptions and 2 fumbles, but one of the fumbles was on that like end around pass back lateral play that you hated. So like, I'm going to give up a pass on that. The other fumble was in the Cardinals game very early on. I was on like the first or second drive.
It was the first series of the season or the second series of the entire season. Yeah,
so
that's just 7. It's wild. Let me ask you this, okay? With respect, and I want to make sure I phrase this properly so it doesn't sound like I'm saying it's his fault. With respect to Stefon Diggs, though, was him leaving the best thing for Josh Allen's career and the best thing for the Buffalo Bills? And I want to make sure that I've said it before, but I feel like I need to say it every time so I'm not accused of saying, oh, Stefon Diggs. No, Stefon Diggs came here at the right time. He helped Josh Allen. Josh Allen is probably not the player he is today were it not for Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs had 4 of the best seasons that any receivers ever in the history of the franchise had here. Okay, he did a lot for this team, this offense, and specifically for Josh Allen. But he left, I think, at the right time as well. There was times where I'm sure Josh Allen had Stefon in his ear. Give me the ball. I need the ball. Forcing throws. We don't see barely any forcing throws this year. There's no one guy that he's trying to make sure, gets the biggest plate of chicken on that day or the biggest plate of steak that day. He's just going to wherever the open guy is, whatever the scheme is for that week. I don't know that he gets to do that if Stefon Diggs is still a Buffalo Bill. So that's why I ask you that. Is Stefon Diggs being gone the best thing that could have happened to this team and to Josh Allen? What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I do think that it is, but it's weird. Chris Sims on NBC at halftime of the Sunday night game said that Josh Allen had the best group around him of his entire career. And, I kind of put that on Twitter, like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because they're certainly not the most talented group that Allen has ever had around him. Like, you can't say that losing Stefon Diggs, losing Gabe Davis, and replacing him with like a rookie Keon Coleman and like eventually Amari Cooper makes it like the best group of pass catchers he's ever had around him, because I don't think that's true. But maybe on a holistic level, like the group that as constructed now might be the best like group altogether, because he's able to read the defense and make the right read that's been helpful for the Bills offense and helpful for Josh Allen. I liken it to like offensive line play, which is a little bit weird. Like, how sometimes an offensive lineman, if he's worried about the guy next to him, will sort of cheat over that way and maybe miss his block because he's like trying to help out the inexperienced dude that's next to him. And it feels like for whatever reason, the Bills haven't had to cheat this year because Stefon Diggs isn't there or because Gabe Davis isn't there. Not that they were like running their offense through Gabe Davis, but like, he would always have like that out of the corner of his eye, like, okay, if Diggs is there, I'm going to throw it to Diggs. And now he's just like, well, I'm just going to go wherever the defense dictates here. So I feel like it's better as a whole for them without Diggs, even if the talent level might not be quite as high as it was last year with Diggs and Davis in the lineup.
Did everybody eats go from a corny catchphrase to like a legitimate way of life for this offense that has really helped them prosper? It certainly feels that way. Joe Marino put out a stat that I was unaware of until I saw him put it up there. During this streak where the Bills have scored 30 points now in 8 straight games. Who the hell saw that shit coming over the summer? That is crazy. But I think I saw Joe put out 5 different guys have led this team in receiving during this 8-game streak. Shakir's done it 3 times, and then 4 other guys have done it, I think, once. I'd have to go back and find his tweet. But you know what I'm saying? It's like everybody eats
and hold on.
Life. Go ahead.
And none of those people are Dalton Kincaid or Amari Cooper. So
crazy.
Just throwing that in the mix too. Like I quote tweeted it with that information. Yeah. It's like 6 different receivers have led, or 6 different people have led the team in receiving yards, including Ty Johnson and Ray Davis, but not Amari Cooper and not Dalton Kincaid.
You want to hear a funny? You want to hear a funny story? So Joe don't tweet that much. I had to go find his tweet. If I would have put this tweet out from 3 days ago, it would have taken me half the show to go find it because I tweet 10,000 times a day. Joe fortunately doesn't. Now, here was his tweet: the Bills have scored 30 points in 8 consecutive games, tying an NFL record. Spoiler alert, they could break it Sunday. Six different players have led the team in receiving yards in those games. Khalil Scared 3 times, Keon Coleman, Ray Davis, Matt Collins, Dawson Knox, and Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson. Who had Ty Johnson having 114 yards receiving on their bingo card this week? Just wild. A lot of that's Joe Brady too. Just he saw something this week on film, or last week, I should say, that he could exploit those linebackers. Because if you would have told me, look, that running back's going to go for 100 yards rushing, that other running back's going to get 100 yards receiving, I would have been like, oh shit, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, they got the Bills. But no, it was James Cook. It was Ty Johnson. But yeah, I just feel like this is a different Josh when he's not stuck on the field trying to feed one guy the majority of the time, or at least make sure he doesn't go without a meal. All right. He might not be the biggest plate every single week, but he ain't going without a meal. Amari Cooper didn't even get no scraps on Sunday. He didn't even get a target, which, by the way, I guarantee you, Amari Cooper did not give a shit about not getting a target. He cares about the team winning and putting up 48 points. One more thing with Josh, too. Do you think that because I think Josh is kind of petty. He's certainly a big shit talker out there. We see that every week. But Josh is probably petty, and that's okay. But do you think the national, a lot of what people said about him this offseason over the summer, he took that shit personal, man. A lot of national, talking heads burying him, saying, the guy's a highlight reel, but he's a turnover machine. The NFL did, the NFL top 100 came out. Josh was only 12th on that list, which is pretty goddamn wild to me now, especially. And, it's not even just the media. It was also the players. He was voted the most overrated player in that poll, and that was by his peers. That was by players. You think Petty Josh, took that shit personal going into this season?
Oh, it would shock me if he didn't take it personally. Yeah. That's just the kind of player he is. I'm not saying that he's still thinking about, maybe he is being called the most overrated player on December 18th that he was on August 18th when that stuff came out. But maybe he put, Rocky Balboa, he's got all of those news clippings. He printed them off his little computer and put them on his mirror so that in the morning he sees it and gets remotivated by it. But, it would not surprise me at all if that's exactly why Josh is protecting the ball more, but I do think it really does come back more to, the skill position players that he has around him, because let's even go back to that Houston game where you said he was forcing everything, right? But Marquez Valdez-Scantling played almost half the snaps in that game. He had Terrell Shavers playing a quarter of the snaps. They were hurt on the skill positions. And so it makes sense that he was forcing stuff because he probably was forcing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Hollins was playing 54%, Samuel 56%, Keon 62%. They were Knox and Kincaid were there, and we were hoping they would step up, but the receiving core was not great. And so they were trying to manufacture whatever they could, and he just was pushing it, was pressing it. Hopefully they don't have to, I know Marquez Valdez-Scantling's on the Saints now, but hopefully they don't have to go all the way down to the bottom of the barrel there.
I don't know, man. I just feel like he's enjoying everything right now. He's just, he looks
life.
Like he's having the time of his life. Obviously, on the field, off the field, just got engaged. He just seems like he's in a really good place right now. And it's just fun to watch. If I'm thankful about one thing with the Bills defense over the last 2 weeks, how frustrating it could be. You're begging for a stop against the Rams. It never happened. Second half, I thought the Bills defense played pretty good for 3 quarters. So I thought it was a little bit inflated how, the game as a whole looked for the defense. But let's just take that fourth quarter, prevent defense, whatever you want to call it. Detroit's desperate. You're begging for the Bills to make just one more stop. I don't want to have any stress at the game. Make one stop. Let's not have any stress. Or at the very least, let's make Detroit, have a 5.5, 6, 7 minute drive to score. But it was just bam, bam, bam. They scored 3 touchdown drives of 70 yards. I think maybe one of them went a little over 3 minutes. The other two, I think, were under 2 minutes or something like that. Anyway, my point was this. It was a helpless feeling as a Bills fan watching that defense not be able to stop Detroit, watching them not be able to stop the Rams. I kind of now I'm starting to understand. I mean, we got to see it with Tom Brady all the time as Bills fans. Teams around the league right now, if you're a Rams fan, you're a Detroit fan, that must be the feeling when Josh Allen's on the field. It's like we defended him right. The pass rush, we got guys. We beat the offensive line. We got guys in the backfield. This guy was covered good. How are we still getting beat by this guy? It's got to be like the most helpless feeling. I mean, again, we've experienced it with Mahomes. We've experienced it with Tom Brady. Josh is on that level now where it's like we did everything right. We did everything right, but he beats us anyway. It's just crazy to me. It's wild to me to see it.
They declared an onside kick with 12 minutes left because they didn't think they could stop Josh Allen anymore. Like,
yeah.
It's one thing if it's a surprise onside kick with 12 minutes left, like the Bills did in the greatest comeback game, right? Like that's a different conversation. It was the Bills did it earlier than that, but they thought they had a better chance of recovering an onside kick than stopping Josh Allen at that point. It's the most mind-blowing thing I've seen in a very long time, and I can understand the frustration because, like you said, we saw it so many times. I thought the defense played okay for most of the game. The Bills were up by so many points. Like they were just trying to like run clock and keep everything in front of them. No big plays, all that stuff. So I actually thought the defense played okay for most of the game, especially considering they were down 3 of their starting defensive backs. So I was like, I'm a little bit with Sal Capaccio. You mentioned Sal earlier. Like he got roasted online for saying that the Bills defense played pretty well on Sunday, even though they gave up 42 points. But like I'm more aligned with him than I am with the people that say it was a disaster.
Me too. I don't think Sal was wrong. I think Sal was actually.
They got pressure with the front four. Like Ed Oliver was all over the place. Like they had a pretty good game out of most of their defensive players. You forced 2 punts on the first 2 series of the game. You allowed your offense. You deferred. You won the kickoff. You deferred. You got 2 stops. The Bills scored 2 touchdowns. 14-0. The Bills were able to get control of this game early because the defense did their job just as good as the offense did their job, and they also forced a turnover. So, yeah, I mean, again, Detroit exploded late, but I thought the Bills' defense did a good enough job. Was it great? No, of course it wasn't great. It could never be great when you give up 42 points under any circumstance. But, yeah, I thought they played better than a lot of people out there thought for sure. And to your point, you're really starting to see the Easter eggs when it comes to, like, Josh Allen's effect, the onside kick. Moving a football game against a 3-11 team to 425 because the people around the nation want to watch Josh Allen play football. I'm pretty sure if it's not Jim Nantz and Tony Romo calling this game, it's the second crew. So one of the bigger crews from CBS are going to be calling this game as well. I'm not sure if they had it official at that time, but they haven't announced it officially yet, but CBS only had they don't have any of the games on Saturday. So this is the game that's going national. It is announced. It's going to be, I'm looking at the wrong week. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to end up being Jim Nantz and Tony Romo just because it's the only national game, unless they really want to put them somewhere else because they've called Josh Allen's name too many times.
Oh, dude, I'm just saying, I remember for years and years, the Bills would be like 3-11 or, whatever their shitty record would be near the end of the year. And it would be a tucked away game where like Solomon Wilcots would be doing the color commentary for the Bills. It felt like every week.
506 Sports has it as Ian Eagle and Charles Davis, which I'm a big fan of Ian Eagle. Me too. So that's cool. Me too.
I love that. I love that combination as well. One more Bills thing.
Nantz and Romo are on the game that was supposed to be the national game, the 49ers in Miami.
Okay.
So that might change. It might change. Like I said, this is Tuesday. It might change by Wednesday when all that stuff is finalized.
Yeah, 100%. I want to bring up one more quick point here. I call Josh Allen petty. I'm being a little bit petty here as well towards my good friend, Aaron Quinn from Cover One. Love Aaron Quinn, man. Me and him we're like siblings that fight all the time. Not fight. We don't fight. We bicker all the time. I get under Aaron's skin. He gets under mine. I think sometimes it's on purpose, but I love Aaron. Like my musical brother too, man. We are both big fans of like 90s R&B, just R&B music in general. We have a ton in common with stuff like that. In real life, love each other. Go at it on social media all the time. Not just him, some of the other guys too from Cover One. But anyway, I saw my guy, Aaron, say that Sean McDermott was the best Bills coach of all time. And look, I called him out on it on Twitter. I said, that is outlandish. And he said, that's kind of funny coming from you to call tweets, anyone's tweets outlandish, because I do put a lot of, ridiculous shit out there myself. I'm like, fair point, fair point. But I don't think I've ever had anything more outlandish than that. I like Sean. Sean's done a good job, not just this Sunday, not just this season, but overall throughout his career. But how can any reasonable person, especially somebody who's knows as much about football and is as smart as somebody like Aaron, say that it's not Marv Levy? I just had to spend 2 minutes going to making sure I'm not going crazy here and going back and looking at Marv's Bills resume. First of all, I'm old and I remember, I don't need to look at any numbers because I remember the mid 80s. Okay. Most of you guys weren't around, or you're at least too young to know. I wasn't. I was a young teenager or just turning into a teenager, but I vividly remember the Bills being 2-14 in 1984 and 1985. I remember in 1986, he got fired after Hank Bola after 7 games. Fun fact, too, by the way, I had Will Wolford on the podcast before, and he told me straight up on the podcast that they tanked that Tampa game. The word got out that they were going to get fired, or Bola was going to get fired if they lost that game. Someday I'm going to play that clip. I thought it was an insane clip. Anyway, they did lose that game. Veterans, Will Wolford was a rookie, and veterans were threatening him on the team. They were smoking cigarettes in the locker room. They were threatening him on the team to not make any plays to lose that game. Anyway, Marv becomes head coach. They sucked that year, obviously. By the next year, they were competitive. They were 7-8 in 87. Now, at this point, I had to look this shit up. And then they were a 12-win team by 1988. Anyway, he led the Bills to the playoffs 8 times in 9 years. We all know about the 4 Super Bowls. They actually went to 5 AFC championship games. In 7 of his 9 years, they won 10 games. Am I insane? What are we doing here? Is Marv Levy not the best head? And one other little nugget. He happens to be in the Hall of Fame too.
Right. Sean McDermott's not a Hall of Fame coach right now. So that should
what are we doing? What are we doing here? What are we doing here?
So on Friday, actually, at Buffalo Rumblings, I posted this because I stole the idea from Pride of Detroit, our Lions blog. They were debating whether or not Dan Campbell was already the best coach in Lions history, which, he might be. I don't really know. I didn't dive into that, but I saw that they were talking about it. There was a lot of discourse around Sean McDermott after the way he ended the game against the Rams. So I brought it to the Buffalo Rumblings community. I put together all the stats. This was on Friday, the 13th. And I asked, is he the best Bills coach of all time? And people absolutely roasted me. They called out the timing of it, saying, of course you did this after a loss, Matt. You hate McDermott. And the ice cold timing of this, just reeks. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. People are trying to defend him as the best coach in Bills history. It shouldn't matter if they lost 1 game in the middle of a regular season in which they're already clinched the AFC East. The timing of it does not matter. The only thing McDermott can hang his hat on over Levy is he has a better regular season winning percentage than Marv Levy does.
He does, yes.
Okay. I don't want this to ever happen. Josh Allen's going to be the Bills quarterback for forever. But Marv Levy had to go through the transition to Todd Collins and all this other stuff. At some point, you can't just rely on one player. And to McDermott's credit, he helped develop Josh Allen. But at some point, you would want to see him we talked about this with Belichick and Tom Brady. Which one is it? Is it the quarterback or the coach? And so McDermott hasn't won enough in the playoffs. He hasn't transitioned off of the best quarterback that I've ever seen play the game. There's just a lot of things he's going to have to check off in order to be ahead of Marv Levy. And Levy did an underrated job holding all of those personalities that were on that early 90s, late 80s Bills team together. The bickering Bills turned into, a brotherhood. They get together now all the time, and, still all these years later are still very close, but that's not how it always was. And so I think a lot of that has to do with Marv Levy. So, I've said on this program that Sean McDermott might be the best, coach in the league, for 6 days and 21 hours a week. And I don't necessarily love his in-game stuff. And I think Levy was better in game and with a lot of other things. He had his flaws, but I'm still putting Levy ahead of McDermott, at least for the next several years. Just like you can't put necessarily Josh Allen as the best Bills player ever until he gets another year or two under his belt and starts to, I don't know, establish that long-term resume as opposed to just the one moment in time resume.
And let me be clear too. Sean McDermott's the second best coach in Bills franchise history, and that's not too shabby. Okay. If you're old enough to, not everybody knows about the Bills Super Bowl era. Some people sort of remember it. If you're old enough to really appreciate it, the word resilient was the number one term that would always be associated with the Buffalo Bills. Their resiliency, because year after year, they'd get their hearts broken, and then they would be back in the Super Bowl the next year. Marv Levy was a master at having guys either check their ego at the door or managing the Eagles. Any way you want to look at them, that team was a brotherhood, to your point, because of the head coach. There were probably better X's and O's head coaches that would not have worked. Maybe one of them gets you to one Super Bowl. I'll say that. But to have that sustained run that the Bills did, you don't have that without Marv Levy. Opposite types of coaches, too. Like, Sean McDermott is have your hand in the cookie jar for everything. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying that's wrong. He's the CEO of this team. Marv was a lot more of a delegator. Like, Marv ran it like he's the manager of the company. But, his guys who ran his departments ran those departments. They were the innovators of that, K-gun offense. That's just a lot of different things. I just can't believe I'm even having a discussion right now about it. Aaron did have one fair point, free agency makes it harder to maintain a good team in this era. And that was a good point that Aaron brought up. And again, I am not dismissing Sean McDermott as, not being a very, very good head coach, but come on, man. A guy who takes your team to 4 straight Super Bowls and is the Hall of Fame, that's just some straight up recency bias, feeling pretty damn good.
He's got twice as many playoff wins as Sean McDermott. It's just there's some things we can talk about and in the regular season, Sean McDermott's done a really great job, but it's hard to, when the stuff matters, obviously those Bills teams kept winning. This reminds Super Bowl.
This reminds me of film guys, because I think integrity is really important. If you're a film guy, you're hopefully objective and you're showing everything objectively, because when you are a film guy, if I want to make, I don't know, name a player, man. If I want to make Ed Oliver look like a stud every week, even when he's not producing numbers, I can make him look like a stud. I could also probably take some film and make Ed Oliver look really bad on a day where he was pretty decent, just by showing you certain things, being really selective with what I want you to know. I want to control the narrative. I could easily make Sean McDermott sound like a much lesser head coach than what, I could say, well, you got the unicorn quarterback in a 4-team division, and one of those 4 teams, the Patriots, have stunk now for a handful of years. There's lots of questions with these other teams. The Jets might be the worst organization in all of professional sports. Buffalo Sabres, of course, have something to say about that. But I'm just saying, you could do that. You could talk about some of the late game mismanagements from Sean McDermott. You can certainly talk about how he's not been at his best in the playoffs a couple times at 13 seconds. There's a lot of shit. But I'm not going to go that way, because I do think that that Sean McDermott is a fine head coach. And if you were, for shits and giggles real quick here, because I had to look this up, if you were to build me a case for Sean, they have made the playoffs 7 of his 8 years, double-digit wins 6 times now in 8 years. They won 5 straight divisional titles. He's got a .656 win percentage, which is actually better than Andy Reid, Mike Tomlin, and John Harbaugh right now for his career, let alone Marv. So again, I'm not taking nothing away from Sean, but he ain't Marv Levy. That's just nuts, man. I did want, what, we don't even really need to talk about it, but I did have in my notes from Sunday's game 3 negatives from the game. I thought Balin Spector, you got to find a way to not have him on the field. It's just a complete and utter liability. I'm not a Buffalo homer dude. I'm not rooting for because he's the Buffalo guy, but Joe Andreessen would be a better option to me at this point than Spector if something's wrong with him. I also saw in the film, you really need DeMar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp to get healthy. Not necessarily this week. I think they'll be fine this week, maybe even for the next couple of weeks, but those guys need to be healthy for the playoffs. And Tyler Bass misses a 24-yarder. Redemption later on, but I'm concerned. I don't think you could trust him. he might miss that in the fourth quarter. He might not get an opportunity for redemption in a playoff game. Scares the shit out of me. And yeah, that would be he's stuck. He's here for the rest of the season. Next year, different story. Real quick before we get out of here, though. Big game with the Chiefs this week. At Houston. The Bills obviously need Houston to win this game. If you're talking, one seed implications. Mahomes, high ankle sprain. Is this dude playing? Do you think he's playing? Is he missing time?
Our Arrowhead Pride beat reporter, Pete Sweeney, said he doesn't think he's going to be playing this weekend. Now, that was on Sunday night, Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
So we've obviously have more information now on Wednesday, but I think Mahomes was already complaining that they were going to be playing 3 games in 11 days.
Right.
So I think adding this on top of it, it tells me that he's going to miss the Saturday game, and he doesn't want to. He tried to go back into the game on Sunday, and Andy Reid wouldn't let him. So I think at some point the Chiefs are like, no, we need you for the playoffs. You can skip this Saturday game. If you really want to play on Christmas and you show that you're like mobile and stuff, then we can do that. But I think just with the tight turnaround time, it's 6 days to Saturday, and then it's the 4-day turnaround to Wednesday on Christmas Day. It's going to be a lot to ask him to play on an injured ankle twice in 11 days. So I don't think he's going to play on Saturday. He might have a shot to play on Christmas.
Sure. I try not to agonize over, all these close call KC wins. I'm like, man, if just one of those single ones didn't go their way and the Bills were only 1 game behind instead of 2, I'd feel a lot better. But if you're still clinging on to the 1 seed hope, you're the Bills. Look, you got New England twice and you got the Jets at home. It would be inexcusable to not win those games. You could anything less than 14-3 for the Bills, as long as they're playing for something in week, to end the season, would be inexcusable to me. So you need 2 Chiefs losses, and one could come this week at Houston with Mahomes, but especially without him. And then they play Pittsburgh next week. So you're clinging on the hope. There is hope still, not maybe necessarily a ton of it, but those Houston and Pittsburgh are certainly 2 teams that are very capable of beating Kansas City. More than likely the 2, though. The Bills win 2 of these next or last 3 games. They're guaranteed no worse than the 2. And they're probably going to get it regardless. But anyway, the Chargers. So you're going to start to lock it on the 7th seed a little bit more. Chargers are currently the 7th seed now. A little bit of flipperoo here, but they play Denver this week. So pretty wild, man. The Chargers finish at New England and at Vegas after that. So they're looking pretty good to get 9 to 10 wins. I looked at odds because we've been talking a lot every week about Miami and Cincinnati, especially. Miami's 9% to make the playoffs right now. Cincinnati is 10%. I need Cincinnati to be 0%. It's every week. Joe from Queens and I talked on the post game, and we went through a scale of who we wanted to play the least in the playoffs. And they're right up there for me. They're probably not going to make it. But anyway, I still worry a little bit about Denver. I don't feel 100% confident because of Denver. Denver's 9-5 right now. Like, well, they're 9-5. But they still got to play at the Chargers, at Cincinnati, and Kansas City, who potentially could have something to play for Kansas City in week 18. They might have to win to guarantee to lock up the 1. So that's potential losing out territory. And that puts them at 9-8. And they're playing Cincinnati. And if Cincinnati wins out, Cincinnati could get to 9-8, and they would have beaten Denver head to head. So I'm not feeling good yet. All right, let's just put it that way, Matt. I'm not feeling good yet.
Yeah, I get that. The thing with the Broncos too, man, they're approaching paper tiger like Miami Dolphins status right now because they only have 1 win over a team I would call good, and that was in September when they beat the Buccaneers, which the Buccaneers aren't even that good. But they blew out the Falcons and Colts, who are kind of like those iffy middle of the road teams. And then their losses have come to the Chiefs, Ravens, Chargers, Steelers, and Seahawks. So every good team that they've played, they got whooped by. So it feels like a little bit like Denver's just kind of feasting on their low schedule as opposed to necessarily being like, one of the top 5 teams in the AFC. And the Chargers are kind of the same way. They've lost 3 of 4. The only good team they beat are the Broncos, and that was in mid-October. And so, maybe I guess you could say the Bengals and Falcons are good teams, but like both of those wildcard teams are just a little bit suspect. And it's going to be interesting to see not only how they shake out the rest of the regular season, but one of them is going to make the playoffs probably. And that's going to be, if the Bills end up at the 2 seed, that's probably going to be who the Bills play in that 7 spot, unless Cincy can sneak in or something.
I'll tell you this. Oh God, don't say that. Don't say that, man. And going back to the Chiefs here to end this,
Sure.
We'll know they play Saturday at 1 p.m. against Houston. If they beat Houston, I'm going to be ready to concede. Like if this was a presidential election, the Chiefs would be getting my my concession call. If they beat Houston, they're not going to lose their last 2. They're good. They're going to be the number 1 seed, in my opinion.
They can clinch the number 1 seed just by winning on Saturday and again on Christmas. And so we'll know fairly early on in this whole process whether or not the Bills are going to need to do anything in week 17 or week 18 in order to secure the number 2 spot or even like play for the 1 spot or what's going to happen there. But so like I think that is an interesting part of the schedule piece as well. Not just who Kansas City is playing, but when they're playing is going to really impact how Buffalo makes decisions in week 17 and 18.
Absolutely. And look, they could clinch as early as Christmas. But to me, realistically, if they lose to Houston on Saturday, it feels like it's game on over the last 3 weeks. If they beat Houston, to me, for all intents and purposes, it's over because they might lose one of their last 2. I don't think they lose both of their last 2. The one X factor could be if Mahomes' ankle is just that bad that he can't play it for the next couple of weeks. If they play it safe and say, look, worst case, we end up at the number 2 seed and we want Mahomes to sit for and I don't see this happening, but I'm just saying, he's got to sit for 2 to 3 weeks and we got to get him right. That's more important than, exposing him to further injury and trying to get the 1. If they come to that conclusion, then maybe I could say, well, I could lose 2 of these last 3 or lose the last 2, even if they were to win this one, but not feeling good about that, man.
I don't feel good about it, but there's certainly a path for the Bills to get the 1 seed. It's not like some of the crazy playoff scenarios we used to run like a decade ago. Like if these 12 outcomes all happen in the exact right order, the Bills can sneak into a wild card spot. Like, we've lived there. This is like, we're talking about the Texans, Steelers, and Broncos, 3 playoff teams that the Chiefs are going to be playing on short schedules with, on wonky times. Like it's definitely a possibility that the Chiefs can drop 2 of these 3 games.
Sure. And look, last point I'll say too, and maybe I'm bracing for what feels like the inevitable, but my guy Topluck said it perfect, man. Look, all's not lost if the Bills don't get the number 1 seed anyway. Right. You can make a very reasonable case. And if you get to 2 and you're going to play either the Chargers or Denver, likely in the wild card round, and if Pittsburgh wins that division, you might prefer to play Pittsburgh in Orchard Park as opposed to being the 1 seed. And yes, you get that free look, that free bye, but then you're playing 4 or 5, and that could be Baltimore. Baltimore could go into Houston as the 5, beat Houston, and now you're faced with playing a Baltimore team that a lot of people feel just match up really, really good against the Buffalo Bills. So there's some, take consolation in the fact that maybe, all's not lost if you're not the number 1 seed. It could play out lots of different ways. So we'll see.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I'm going to do it for this episode. Follow Matt on, I'll say social media instead of just Twitter or Blue Sky at Matt Rich Warren. We're going to have a show next week. We're not going to drop it on Wednesday though. We're either going to do a show for next Tuesday or next Thursday. You and I will talk and we'll figure it out. Not going to waste a Christmas morning episode with Matt. I'll have like a rerun episode or highlight clips or something like that on actual Christmas morning, but definitely we'll see you next week, man. Appreciate you as always.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
All right, guys, and I will be back. PK from the Buffalo Sports Collective is going to join me tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit of Bills, but we're going to really dig in. Long overdue, man. Really going to give it to the Buffalo Sabres. Talk to you guys then.